Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today, we're taking a close look at Uranium Royalty Corp. You shared some interesting information on this one, and, well, our job here is to boil it down, figure out what's most important for you, the listener, to understand. We've got financials, business strategy, what they've been up to recently, market feel.
Yeah,
Lots to unpack. Let's get started.
absolutely. And the information we have is pretty current, goes up to about mid-April 2025. So it's a recent snapshot. We're drawing from a detailed due diligence report, a company analysis, recent news, gives us a few different angles, from the numbers down to the latest events and market reactions. The goal really is to make sense of it all, pull out the key takeaways, what it might mean going forward.
Okay, sounds good. Let's get into the money side first, financials. For the fiscal year ending April 2024, revenue was CAD 42.71 million. Pretty impressive growth, right? Like 208.
Massive growth that year, yes.
Yeah. But then the latest data up to January 34, 2025 shows a really sharp drop, down about 48% year over year to CAD 23.14 million. And the report notes very low revenue in that most recent quarter. So what's driving this this up and down in revenue? It seems quite volatile.
Well, that volatility is kind of inherent in the royalty model sometimes. The report suggests it's mostly about when they recognize the revenue. It's
Yeah.
not like selling widgets every month. Revenue depends on when the mines they have royalties on actually sell their uranium and then, pay out that royalty.
Okay, so it's lumpy, tied to other company sales cycles.
Exactly. That near zero revenue in the last reported quarter really drives that home. It means you probably need to look at the longer picture, not just one quarter's results.
Makes sense. Now, this next part is, well, caught my eye. Earnings per share, not explicitly stated in what we have, but the forward price to earnings ratio, it's extremely high, around 230 times for fiscal 2025.
That's 230x.
Compared to an industry average, maybe around, 24 times? That's a huge difference.
It really is. It stands out.
So that suggests either the market is expecting absolutely massive growth down the line, or earnings right now are just very, very low compared to the stock price. What could the market be pricing in there?
That's the key question, isn't it? Such a high forward PE signals enormous optimism about future profits. It's likely tied to expectations of, well, rising uranium prices, for one, and also the ramp-up of production at mines where they hold royalties. Think Langer Heinrich, perhaps Millennium coming online eventually.
So it's a bet on future potential, not current earnings power.
Pretty much. A bit like valuing a development stage biotech, maybe. The current numbers don't tell the whole story if a big royalty stream is expected to kick in. But, and this is important, that high PE also means significant risk. If those growth expectations aren't met, the valuation could be hit hard.
Understood. Okay, what about debt? The sources don't give a specific debt-to-equity ratio.
No, not specified here. But typically, for royalty companies, you'd expect relatively low debt. Their model doesn't require the massive capital expenditures of building a mine.
Right. And free cash flow, also not detailed.
Again, not detailed, but the nature of the business, collecting royalties, usually means positive free cash flow historically. Though, like revenue, it could fluctuate quite a bit, depending on when those royalty payments actually arrive.
And return on equity, also missing.
Also missing from these specific sources.
So if someone wanted to find these specifics, debt-to-equity, FCF details, ROE, where should they look?
Good question. The due diligence points us in the right direction. The company's official filings. You need to go to their audited annual and quarterly reports. In Canada, that means checking SEDAR plus AS, and also their own investor relations website usually has presentations and supplemental data. That's where you'd find the detailed balance sheets, cash flow statements, and income statements needed to calculate these metrics.
Okay, useful pointers. Let's shift gears a bit. The business model itself. Uranium Royalty Corp is a pure-play uranium royalty company. What does that actually mean for its risk profile compared to, say, a Cameco or another miner?
Being pure play royalty fundamentally changes the risk profile. They don't operate mines. So they avoid the direct operational risks, the costs, the technical challenges of mining, the labor issues, potential accidents, all that stuff.
Okay, less operational risk.
But their risk is tied to the success of the mines they hold royalties on. They need those operators to produce and sell uranium profitably. And of course, they're heavily exposed to the uranium price itself.
And they also hold physical uranium. That's part of their strategy, too.
Yes, they do. That adds another dimension. It gives them direct exposure to spot price movements, potentially benefiting from price increases or using it strategically.
Interesting. The analysis mentions a key advantage being their strategic investments, royalties on producing mines like MacArthur River,
Through agreements with Urano, yes.
and also advanced projects like Camco's Millennium or Paladin's Langer Heinrich ramp-up. How does this mix position them? They're called a challenger, gaining scale.
That diversified portfolio is definitely a strength. MacArthur River should provide relatively steady cash flow now, as it's a major producer, while the development stage assets like Millennium and Langer Heinrich as it ramps up offer that future growth potential we talked about regarding the PE ratio.
So a mix of present and future income streams.
Exactly. It helps balance things out. And being called a challenger gaining scale implies they're actively trying to grow their royalty portfolio, maybe compete more directly with larger established royalty players in the space.
Now, the bigger picture context, nuclear power is seeing a resurgence, right? Clean energy policies are a big driver.
Absolutely. That's the major tailwind for the whole uranium sector. Governments globally are reconsidering nuclear as part of the solution for decarbonization and energy security.
And we're seeing production increases at some key mines, maybe indicating supply is tightening.
That seems to be the narrative. Increased demand meeting potentially constrained supply, which generally supports prices.
But there are always risks. Regulatory changes, delays in getting mines developed or permitted.
Definitely. Those are significant risks.
Mm.
Regulatory hurdles can impact demand or directly affect specific projects they hold royalties on, and mine development delays are, well, almost standard in the mining industry. That pushes expected revenue further out.
Okay, let's talk recent developments. This is info up to mid-April 2025. They appointed a new director, Ken Robertson. Background in mining finance, governance. What signal does that send?
Generally, bringing in someone with that kind of expertise, mining finance, governance is seen positively. It suggests a focus on strengthening leadership, maybe preparing for more complex deals or financial management as they grow, enhances credibility, potentially.
Makes sense. And they made an acquisition, a royalty interest in Cameco's Millennium and Cree extension projects, paid $6 million for a 10% net profit interest.
Right, the Millennium Project. It's known to have substantial uranium resources in the Athabasca Basin.
So how significant could this be for future revenue? A 10% net profit interest sounds potentially quite valuable if the mine is profitable.
It could be very significant, yes. A net profit interest, or NPI, means they get a cut after operational costs. If Millennium becomes a profitable mine, that 10% NPI could generate substantial long-term cash flow, given the reported resource size. It's a longer-term play, though, as the project isn't producing yet.
Got it. And they've also been buying more physical uranium. Mentioned acquiring the U.S. uranium royalty portfolio from Anfield Energy.
Yes, expanding their physical holdings as well.
What's the advantage of holding the actual physical metal, besides just royalties?
Several potential advantages. One is direct price exposure. If the uranium spot price goes up, the value of their holdings increases. They could sell it for a profit. Two, it's a strategic asset. Maybe they could use it in future deals, perhaps provide some uranium as part of a financing package for a developing mine in exchange for a royalty.
Oh, interesting. Leverage in negotiations.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It also provides a bit of a hedge against the lumpiness of royalty payments we discussed, and it makes them a more direct player in the physical market itself.
Okay. And the market reaction. The stock price apparently moved up to around 1.6755 per share mid-April after these announcements.
Suggests the market liked the news, the acquisition, the director appointment, positive sentiment.
But there were also fluctuations around earnings releases mentioned earlier. What does that tell us about sensitivity?
It tells us the market is watching both the strategic moves and the financial results closely. Positive strategy updates can lift the stock, but disappointment on the earnings front, especially with that high PE, can cause volatility. The market seems quite sensitive.
And institutional investors, Centerbrook Partners, National Bank Financial, reportedly increased their stakes. Why is that often seen as a good sign?
Institutional buying is often viewed positively because these firms usually do deep homework before investing significant capital. Their buying can imply confidence in the company's strategy, management, and future prospects. It adds a layer of validation, you could say.
And analyst sentiment, generally favorable, some price targets suggesting upside.
Generally favorable according to the sources, yes, with some analysts seeing decent upside potential. Of course, analyst opinions vary and targets are just estimates, but it contributes to the overall picture.
So let's crystallize the risks and opportunities. Opportunities seem clear. Exposure to high-grade stuff in the Athabasca Basin, strategic deals in a rising price environment.
Correct. The leverage to high-grade assets is key, And acquiring royalties when the underlying commodity price outlook is strong can be very accretive if that trend continues.
And the key risks. We touched on them. Regulations, commodity price swings, and relying on third-party mine operators. How do these hit a royalty company specifically?
Well, for a royalty company, regulatory hurdles are critical. A new environmental rule or permitting delay for a mine they hold a royalty on directly impacts their future income, even though they aren't operating the mine. Market volatility is obvious. Lower uranium prices mean lower royalty values generally and impact the value of their physical holdings.
And the third-party operator risk.
That's fundamental. Their revenue depends entirely on someone else running a mine effectively, efficiently, and hitting production targets. If the operator messes up, has technical problems, or financial issues, Uranium Royalty Corp feels the pain directly through lower or delayed payment, but without having direct operational control to fix it.
Right, you're kind of a passenger in that respect.
A financially interested passenger.
Okay, last point. Peers. How do they stack up against, say, NextGen Energy, Uranium Energy Corp, Denison Mines? The model is different, right?
Very different model from explorers like NextGen or Denison, or even UEC, which has its own operations alongside royalties. UROY is pure play royalty. It means typically lower operational risk, as we said, but maybe less upside leverage if one of those explorers makes a truly giant discovery they own 100% of.
They have a smaller market cap than some peers, but the diversified portfolio is a plus.
Yes, diversification across different assets and operators helps mitigate that third-party risk somewhat.
But how does that massive PE ratio compare? Are the miners or explorers also trading at huge multiples, or is this premium more specific to UROY or the royalty model? Did the sources give any color on that?
The sources don't provide a direct PE comparison for those specific peers. It's hard to compare directly anyway, as explorers often have no earnings, so PE isn't meaningful. However, the 230x for UROY does seem exceptionally high, even within the context of an optimistic uranium market. It suggests the market might be putting a significant premium on the perceived safety and uranium price leverage of the royalty model itself, or perhaps on UROY's specific portfolio and growth prospects compared to its current, somewhat modest earnings base.
Okay, so putting it all together, what's the takeaway for someone trying to get informed here? Uranium Royalty Corp seems like an interesting, maybe less direct way to play the uranium theme. Using royalties gives lower operational risk.
But it comes with that heavy reliance on others and the uranium price itself.
And the recent revenue swings and that sky-high PE ratio, they really signal that the market has baked in some major growth expectations.
Huge expectations, driven by those acquisitions, the nuclear energy narrative, and the hope for higher uranium prices feeding into those royalty streams.
But essential to remember, the risks commodity prices can fall, regulations can change, mines can face delays.
Absolutely. It highlights how crucial it is to look beyond just the current numbers. You have to consider the industry, the strategy, the management moves, and critically assess how the market is valuing that future potential.
That gap between the PE and the industry average, it's a major point to think about, isn't it? What are the odds those high hopes get met?
That's really the core question for anyone considering it. It requires digging into those growth drivers. How likely are they? How soon do they materialize? It's not a simple picture.
So for listeners wanting to dig deeper themselves,
As we mentioned, the company's own investor materials, their website's investor section, and definitely their official filings on CDR Plus are the primary sources for detailed financials. And keeping an eye on broader nuclear energy news, uranium market trends, and any regulatory shifts is, well, essential context for understanding any company in this sector.
well, hopefully this discussion has provided a useful shortcut to understanding the key facets of Uranium Royalty Corp based on the info you shared. If you found this helpful, please do subscribe, like the video or podcast feed, and definitely leave us a comment. Let us know if you have questions or other companies you'd like us to tackle.